All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Monta Knutson. Welcome to our second week back with Coffee with Monta. Like I said last week, the reason we restarted this weekly program is just to really connect with all the other community partners that are doing a variety of work in our community, and also a way for my organization to kind of understand some of the work that I'm doing as the executive director. People often wonder, what am I doing? So this is also, a way to share some of the work. So today, part of what I'm doing is working on a lot of housing projects and housing policy funding. And today we have Cole, and Cole is the co-director over at HereTogether. Good morning, Cole.
Hey, Monta, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's super great to have you on. We obviously work together in a lot of meetings and around the supportive housing measure and the Metro Bond measure that's running around the Tri-County area. So we really wanted to have you on this morning. Well, let me just tell this story from this weekend. I was getting my hair cut.
It looks good. I
Thank
need to
you.
do that. It looks really good.
There's another side story to that, but I won't go into it on this call. But it was downtown, northwest off of 17th and Pettygrove. And the salon workers and owners were really upset. I just listened to the conversations happening in the room. I didn't add to the conversation and share about the work that I do. But there's just a lot of folks that are angry about downtown and businesses being impacted. And one of the things they said is like, what is happening with all this money, right? And they feel like nothing's getting done. I think this is a good time to talk about what HereTogether is doing, so we can really put some information out there, what people probably don't know what's happening with all the funding that's happening in the strategic planning. So please take it from here and share about HereTogether. I'd love to hear how you came to that role as well, and all that.
Yeah, thanks, Monta. Well, it's so good to be here, and I'm really excited to be talking to so many of the folks in the Bridges to Change community. You guys are an amazing coalition partner and doing really incredible work, especially for folks who are, struggling with and recovering from addiction. And so thank you seriously so much for the work that y'all do. Truly important, truly remarkable. I'll just share a little bit about me personally and kind of how I got into this seat. I moved to Oregon nearly 12 years ago to do Jesuit Volunteer Corps and AmeriCorps. I was getting out of college, knew that I wanted to do something to help people, and I knew that I didn't want to be in Michigan anymore. Way too cold. Did not want to deal with those winters anymore. And so I was really fortunate to be able to land in Oregon at a place called Operation Night Watch, which is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night hospitality center in downtown Portland for folks who are experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty. So a lot of folks in low-income apartments near the hospitality center. I spent a year making coffee, serving sandwiches, getting people clean socks. And really fell in love with the work. I think part of the reason that I did is because homelessness is one of the most intersectional injustices in our country and in our community. And addressing homelessness requires addressing poverty and the systemic ways that we are keeping people in poverty through our systems, addressing racism and oppression and the ways that generational wealth builds or doesn't build based on who's allowed to buy homes, not buy homes. It also focuses really on our shattered social safety net in so many ways, including a behavioral health system and a healthcare system that really just prioritize those who have the resources already or who can get the jobs that will have the resources. So, and of course, homophobia, transphobia, so many other injustices. So really was drawn into the work and ended up doing a second Jesuit volunteer year at Street Roots, which is Portland's newspaper that folks purchase for a quarter, buy for $1, or I'm sorry, sell for $1 and keep their profit. Those two experiences again, really drove me to want to make some systemic, impactful change. And I was so fortunate and privileged to be able to do that for another 8 years at Street Roots. So truly, this moment where I loved every moment with my vendors, supported so many folks, and realized that we still didn't have enough. If we could have had more access to case management, more access to housing, more access to the general wraparound supports like the behavioral health supports or the peer support for treatment and recovery, we could do so much more. So briefly after leaving Street Roots, I joined the team at the ACLU of Oregon. I was the statewide organizer during the 2019 legislative session and got to really help some folks in the state lobby for some amazing bills. Youth justice reform, death penalty reform, really incredible work. And I got really fortunate to be able to join the team at HereTogether shortly after the legislative session ended. So let me just give you a sense of the landscape when I joined HereTogether. The city of Portland in 2016 passed an affordable housing bond worth $275 million. Metro, the regional government, passed an affordable housing bond in 2018 worth about $618 million. So put those two together, we have nearly $1 billion in capital construction, which is going to build thousands of affordable units across the region, and many of them are being built right now. Some have already opened between those two bonds, but $0 for the services and supports that we know folks who are experiencing homelessness need. Rent assistance, behavioral health, case management, you name it. We need to make sure that we have all of those dollars for those wraparound supports, because everybody who becomes homeless for unique reasons. Getting out of homelessness takes as much of a unique case plan for each person. And so I was really, really fortunate to come to a team at kind of the perfect moment in time. It was before the pandemic, and we were on a mission to do something big. We didn't want to celebrate, the opening of just one shelter when we need hundreds of other beds. We didn't want to celebrate the opening of just one building when we need thousands of units of affordable housing. And so the way that we came to the work was by asking how much was needed to really be able to make a transformational change on the streets for folks experiencing chronic homelessness, and what the public was willing to support. And we were really fortunate to find in both senses that we needed about $250 million a year to support those folks who are chronically homeless, those 4,000 or 5,000 people on the streets every night in the region, and the public's willing to support that. This is a regional issue, right? Homelessness, folks who are homeless don't necessarily know county lines. There are folks on the 82nd Avenue corridor going between Clackamas Service Center and Join on a daily basis. And so we knew that we needed to address this as a region. Fortunately, we have a regional government, Metro, and in the early in 2020, Metro actually referred the HereTogether ballot measure to the ballot. And we were fortunate to be able to really get that on the ballot right before the pandemic. And of course, then we had to run a campaign during the pandemic. We got sent home about 3 weeks in, which was that's a story for a different day. But truly remarkable that the public was able to support folks who were experiencing homelessness at a scale that we knew we needed. So that gives you a little bit of the history of how we got here. I can certainly talk about the work that we're doing, but I want to give you a quick second, Monta, and see if you've got any clarifying questions there.
No, I think that's a good overview. I think I'd like to hear more and we can get into that.
Yeah. So HereTogether, I think the thing that really sets us apart, we are a coalition, right? So we are a small team at HereTogether, but we have a mighty impact because of amazing organizations like Bridges to Change and other leading service providers that are in the community doing the work on a daily basis, helping us inform our advocacy around how we get the measure brought to its fullest potential. I think the thing that's really exciting, though, that sets us apart from a lot of other organizations is that we set very intentionally a table from the very beginning that included both the experts that are doing the work, the service providers, but it also included the business community, because we are here together and we really need to have a full understanding of our community of how we can do this collectively, how we can respond to our homeless crisis collectively. So at the table from the very beginning, we've had the Portland Business Alliance and their members, Business for a Better Portland and their members, and then some of the region's leading homeless service and culturally specific providers, really helping develop the ballot measure. And again, now advocate for how we get it to its highest potential. So our work really now is focused on what it's going to take. I think it's important, going back to what you were saying, Monta, about folks being really frustrated, thinking that things aren't happening. It's really important for us to understand where we are in time. The measure funding, the measure passed in May of 2020, but the funds didn't start flowing until July of 2021. So we had nearly 15 months of planning necessary to get the systems of oversight and accountability in place and the initial plans in place to understand how the money was going to even be moving. And so that's, I think, a really important thing for folks to know. Yes, the measure passed a while ago. There is great work happening every day, and we are on the ground focused on an issue that happened, an issue that's been happening for more than 40 years, right? Let's be clear, homelessness and our homeless crisis did not happen overnight. It is the direct result of 40 years of disinvestment in our housing delivery system, in our social safety net. And that's at a national, state, and local level. It's the direct result of a private housing market that has run away and gotten so unaffordable that even middle-class workers can't afford rent. And those are not issues that you can fix in 13 to 15 months. But what we have seen in the 7 or 8 months since the measure started to fund is that organizations like Bridges to Change are growing on a daily basis, hiring new staff, new case managers, new peer support specialists, and really doing the work to start scaling this up at a rate that we have never even been able to comprehend before as a system. And that's what really excites me about where we are about to go and where we're already going.
Thanks for sharing that. I've been saying this quite a bit lately too, just for context for folks, which kind of adds into like, how did we get here? This didn't happen overnight. And I think about, as you know, Oregon is still and has been ranked dead last to access to care. And so we already were working with a fractured system and on the razor's edge to even address the things that were in front of us pre-COVID. And as a provider that experienced COVID, what happened for us and many other providers like us who are providing housing, substance use disorder care, mental health care, crisis care, is everything shut down. We had a 2-month period where we just didn't know what was happening. In addition to that, organizations like mine didn't have any systems in place for telehealth. So it really took us months to get a cadence of some form of services going. And as you know, telehealth doesn't really fit in with our folks that are out houseless. They lost their charging places. They don't have technology in most cases. And so really, COVID has taken an already horrible situation and just blown it up even worse. And so, and I think that context is important because it looks like it blew up overnight in a lot of cases, in the way that we're seeing it today. And so I think we need to have that context for folks to understand, what was the real impact of COVID? And I think it's going to take us a while to even pull that apart long-term to see what is the impact of our new strategy. And as COVID hopefully continues to slowly wind down and get back to normal running. So I think that's important to add as well.
Yeah, thank you. I should have mentioned that we had 40 years of disinvestment and then 2 years of a pandemic that has really, in every single way, shown the failures of our safety net. I think it's really been an opportunity to lay bare, and I hope for others to understand how much of a thread too many people were holding on by for too long.
And I also think our houseless folks look a lot different than they did in years past. I grew up on the streets of Portland in the 80s and 90s. And it's wholly different than what it was like then. And so we have, I heard this said in a meeting a couple of weeks ago about treatment. It's like we can't use 1990 treatment approaches to 2022 treatment challenges, right? And I think the same thing goes with getting innovative around our housing solutions, really doing the things that you're talking about, is integrating in those wraparound services, which are so germane to folks' success as they enter into safe housing environments, and giving them whatever support they need that brought them to being houseless.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um,
Could
so
you,
one thing,
go ahead.
no, I just want to make sure that I'm also letting your listeners know kind of how the program or programs are working. So I want to be really clear. Here Together is not the government. We are a 501c3 nonprofit coalition, and our entire role, again, was to develop the ballot measure and is to now advocate for successful implementation. So let's just give a really quick overview. It's a metro measure, meaning that our regional government, Metro, is in charge of a couple of things. They referred it, they're in charge of collecting the taxes. So the taxes for the measure are coming from a high income earners tax and a business income tax. So Metro collects those taxes and then distributes them proportionally to each of the three counties in its jurisdiction: Multnomah, Clackamas, Washington. Each of the counties is in charge of, in the last year, they wrote local implementation plans that outline how they're going to spend the money and who they're going to serve. And then they're in charge of actually doing the contracting, the program delivery. Metro is also in charge of doing regional planning. And one thing that we're keeping a very close eye on right now is what's called the Tri-County Planning Body. So that body was set aside in the measure and developed by the Here Together Coalition as the space where we believe a lot of systems change can happen. We can't continue to address homelessness as a housing delivery and shelter system and program. We really need to figure out how we can bring in healthcare, behavioral healthcare, foster care, criminal justice, and more, because all of those systems are interfacing with and in some ways driving homelessness. And so 5% of the measure is set aside for a regional planning initiative that really talks about how we regionalize the system for true change. And we see the Tri-County Planning Body as a really essential vehicle for being able to do that. And so we're really tracking that closely to make sure that that's what ends up happening.
How do you see, what are some of the differences that you see in each county's approach, and maybe some of their similarities in the implementation of this measure?
Oh man, Monta, that is such a good question. All right, let's talk about similarities. Again, my job is really to track all of the aspects of implementation. And so the counties, I think, are doing a pretty good job at trying to regionalize the way that they're doing a lot of this while still delivering services specifically to their population needs. Clackamas County has a large rural area, a small urban area, similar to Washington County. And so there are different needs for their populations. Of course, the money, since it's metro, can only be spent in the urban areas of those counties. But the counties, I think, are doing a good job at coming together on a regular basis to, for example, create a long-term rent assistance program that's very similar to the HUD housing choice voucher, that all of the basically is going to be a voucher that can be used across county lines. If somebody gets an ARLA voucher, they can take it to a landlord in any of the three counties. or they can move, and hopefully a landlord in Washington County will know about it, as well as in Clackamas County. So they're doing, I think, a pretty good job at doing their best to regionalize the systems as they roll out, especially the new ones. Um, Washington County is being pretty innovative. They have done a really good job at basically going from a system that delivered about $12 million in homeless services in 2019 to a system that's scheduled to get somewhere around 50 million just from supportive housing services this year alone. So they've done a really good job, I think, at building up their capacity and the capacity of their providers. They've made investments in, I think, 4 or 5 culturally specific agencies that literally $50,000 to build their capacity and make more stronger service delivery possible. Important to note that equity is one of the core values of the Here Together Coalition, one of the core values of the ballot measure framework. And each of the counties is now on the hook to deliver homeless services in a way that reduce the disproportionate impact that communities of color so often experience when they are in the homeless population. Another really exciting thing I've seen Washington County start talking about is that they are moving forward with basically a mentoring program or a credentialing program for folks who have experienced homelessness or gone through services to more easily become peer support specialists or case managers. The workforce pipeline for this work is huge. And it's something that we all need to have our eyes on because, Portland State University can only accredit so many MSWs per year. We know how important it is for somebody to have that high touch case manager that they can work with. And so really figuring out ways that we can create new pathways into the field as a well-paid career is something that we are really strongly advocating for. So I'm happy to see that happening in Washington County. Multnomah County really has had a strong continuum of care, probably the strongest of the 3 counties for the last 20 years. In just the last, the year before the measure passed and before the pandemic, Multnomah County interfaced with something around 85% of the people experiencing homelessness in the entire region. They found that through their analysis of their homeless management information system portal. So really doing solid work already and investing in scaling up those systems. The first quarter of Multnomah County's work was really about homelessness prevention, especially as the eviction moratorium was ending, really doing their best to just get as much out as they could. Now they're focusing on new opportunities for shelter, both with the Safe Rest Villages through the city of Portland potentially coming online, and the current shelter system in Multnomah County being able to come back to a scale that it was at before that it hasn't been able to be at in congregate settings because of COVID. So slowly ramping that up to probably another 400 beds from where they were before the pandemic. Clackamas County, without going into too much of the sausage making, has had a lot of fits and starts in getting their program running. That has not been an issue with the staff. The staff in Clackamas County is really committed to this, really wants to make a strong impact, and has been at the table as a good partner the whole way. The challenge has been in funding and in the timing of funding. So when new taxes come online, it's very standard that they come more slowly in the first year and then very quickly after tax day. So everybody knew that the taxes would become effective in July of 2021, and that money would potentially start flowing because it's a 2021 tax. But I don't sit down at the beginning of the year and write a check to the government for how much I think I'm going to make. And that's not how most people work. So the business income and the personal income tax started to be voluntary in July of 2021 for all of 2021. but most people won't pay that or aren't paying that until they file their taxes now, because we have until April 18th to get our 2021 taxes paid. Um, Washington and Multnomah County understood that, and they took out bridge loans to be able to make sure that they could get their programming up to scale quickly. Clackamas County expected Ed McMahon to show up with the $24 million Publishers Clearinghouse check on July 1st. And when that did not happen, they dramatically cut back their first year $24 million local implementation plan. And by they, I specifically mean the Board of County Commissioners. What we have seen now, as of yesterday, they're getting somewhere around $4 million just this month, because all of the back taxes are coming in, and the ramp up is coming very quickly. What we're seeing is that they probably are still in the process of getting to their first year goals, and they're probably about 6 to 8 months behind even getting the contracts out that the other counties are on for some of our local providers. They're moving forward on it. And again, I think the staff is moving forward to get that done as quickly as possible. It's just something that we wish we could have seen happen quite a bit earlier, because the need in Clackamas County, as with all of the other parts of the region, is so great.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I did experience that on a couple different levels. We were one of the qualified folks that were pulled out of the funding portion when they had to change their funding strategy because of that. But I mean, we're April's coming, taxes are coming in. We're hoping to see change across, especially in Clackamas County, which seems to be one of our harder places in our flagship county that Bridges to Change started in. Currently, we are moving into housing development here at Bridges to Change. We have site control of a apartment complex that we've owned or that we've leased for about 18 years in West Lynn. We're working with Clackamas County on some acquisition strategies. And then we also have about 20,000 square feet of land over off of 181st and Pine off Stark. So I've hired a really great housing developer who's worked at the executive level for some of the counties and mentioned in housing. And so we're super excited. One of the things I did notice, I've been trying to get this off the ground for a couple of years. I think this comes back to equity in terms of how counties are raising up smaller organizations. We talked about the investments in our BIPOC community organizations, which is great. That's the same thing that's happening through Measure 110. But I feel like as Bridges to Change, we've been taken a little less serious as we're getting started. I see a lot of investors and developers coming in from outside of Oregon to tap into dollars that are at play. So I'm really excited for kind of Bridges' next move, which is adding, housing development on our own. And I'll be interested to see how this plays out over the course of the next 12 to 24 months for Bridges to kind of be at the table and have a part in building housing that's meaningful to our community.
That's so awesome, Monta. And I'm so happy to hear that that's a direction that you're going, because it's going to be critical. We need more housing across the board. That's just a fact. And so to know that there's housing coming on board that's going to be specifically supporting folks in your community with the peer support and all of the other supports that folks need to stabilize and to move forward, like, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that that's your next move.
Yeah, we're super excited. I really want to thank you for taking the time coming on today. I know you're busy. I think we are meeting this afternoon for our bi-monthly meeting. And so thank you for all the work that you're doing over at HereTogether and for our community, and your passion and dedication to serving folks who are most impacted.
Thanks, Monta. And if folks want to learn more, visit www.HereTogetherOregon.org. And when you're there, sign up for our Happening Now newsletter. It comes out on a bi-weekly basis, and it will give you your inbox a big uplift for all of the great work that organizations are doing across the region. So thanks so much. Really great to see you. Really great to be here.
All right. Have a good rest of the week, Cole.
You too.
Okay.